got sworn in. I got elected in the election on November 8th, only sworn in on January 9th. So this is week 7 on the job, and it's been a whirlwind. There's no shortage of things on the news that's going on in the city, most of which is not entirely within my control, but kind of the daily challenges that I'm going to have to be dealing with for the next several years of this term. But yeah, excited to share a little bit about myself, what some of my goals are, introduce some of the different roles that we have on our team. I want to shout out to Iris Marians, who's my staff member here today. Iris is my legislative director, has a long history of working at City Hall and helping show me the ropes right now on things. And with that, I will get started on this PowerPoint. Yeah.
I think we're all seeing you both. Just a second.
Sure.
Minor technical.
No problem.
Apologize.
I'm not sure if any library,
Just a second.
but if so, thank you for lending your community space again to evening events. I think evening and weekend events at the library have been really wonderful to have over here. It's also a 5-minute walk from my house on Cannon.
Let's reshare for just a moment here. Apologies, folks.
Out of curiosity, who here, raise your hand if you live in Dimond proper. Okay, Glenview, anyone? Okay, Laurel or Redwood Heights? Okay, cool. Montclair, North Hills. Okay, cool. Yeah.
Good that you know all the names.
I better. Well, I knocked on 10,000 doors on the campaign, so I know most of the streets, I think.
No, let's pin you, and then I think we are good to go. Okay. Thanks. Sorry for the pickup.
Okay, well, starting off with our contact, district4@oaklandca.gov is our central email. Please feel free to send questions, concerns, complaints, etc. to this email address. This is our phone number. Warning that right now the phones are not fully functional because of the ransomware situation, but they will be up and running soon and we will respond to voicemails. Okay, so this is swearing in day. Just want to note that this was about 7 weeks ago and we have been plugging along our way through. It was exciting to be present with a whole crew of new energy and new leadership, and we started off on a very hopeful note. A little bit about me. So I am from the East Bay, born and raised, hence the A shirts over there. I'm a proud cat mom to 2 little fur babies over there. I am a performing artist, which is singing over there, and have been an activist on different issues at the local and state level. By profession, I'm an attorney. Most of my background has been serving survivors of domestic violence. Prior to becoming an attorney, I was a home visiting maternal case manager. So basically, I made the pretty stark shift from direct community services work into, during the pandemic, recognizing that I wanted to have more voice in policy. I was not involved in politics prior to this, and share the concerns that many of you do around issues and wanting to have a more accountable city hall and a responsible set of leadership. So yeah. A little bit about our new district lines. So redistricting happened last year. So D4 that you see in the purple over there is our new district lines. Basically, Dimond has remained District 4, as has Laurel and Montclair. We added the Glenview to our district. We subtracted some of the neighborhoods below the 580, including the lower Dimond area, and we added a lot of the North Hills and most of the areas that border Berkeley up there. So the district has changed. We are area-wise the largest district in Oakland and population-wise the largest district in Oakland. and the most politically engaged. For context, in the November elections, in District 2 and 6, where there were also council seats up for re-election, only 15,000 residents of each of those districts voted in the election. In contrast, in District 4, 30,000 voted. Double when the population difference is certainly not double. So your District 4 team. So to be in the center, on the left of me is my Chief of Staff, Amber Childress. Iris, who's over here, is on the corner. Nathan Stallnaker is my constituent liaison. Tina Posner is our scheduler. Becca Blanchard, who's not pictured, is our public arts and events liaison, who works part-time with us. And we have these different titles and roles, but essentially every single person on this team, including myself, is focused on constituent services. Each team member covers a different neighborhood. Sometimes we overlap or intersect on different issue-based focus areas. So we will engage with likely me, Amber, or Iris on issues related to the Dimond. And can always will always be channeled from the District 4 inbox to a staff member that can that serves your area or issue and can meet your needs. You don't have to email certain staff separately for different issues. You can always email District 4, or many of you have my personal email. You can email me as well, and I'll forward it to the right person. I want to start off really quickly. I know many of you are seasoned and engaged in local government and community engagement, but there's a lot of misconceptions about what city council members actually do. I like focusing on the positives and the wide universe of things that we do have within our powers to get done. The reality is that I also have limits based on our charter structure, the way it is, and things that I can't necessarily do. So, for example, the two key roles of city council is legislation and budget. City council has the power of the purse in deciding where we spend our general fund, for example. We make those decisions when budget season comes around, which will be starting soon, and the budget will be passed by June, which will then set the budget for the next 2 years. There are mid-cycle amendments that happen, and that's all up to city council. Policy as well. Every ordinance and piece of legislation that impacts our day-to-day is written by city council. Of course, there's state and county and other intersecting laws, and many of those laws preempt local laws. Others work conjunction and together. But budget and legislation is really the core functions of our role. And so, as folks say this differently, but Oakland effectively has a strong or pseudo-strong mayor system. We changed our form of government and amended the charter when Jerry Brown was mayor for various reasons. But and I mention this because one key restriction in my role as city council is not being able to direct city staff. So that means, and we get a lot of this, and it's natural because I thought this less than a year and a half ago that this was in the powers of city council. If I'm running over a pothole, I contact my council members, say, hey, please go fill this pothole. Or if there's been a burglary in my neighborhood or a series of burglaries in my neighborhood, would call city council, write to city council saying, please place a police officer in this intersection that seems to be dangerous. Unfortunately, I don't have the power to direct OPD, for example, to tell them to place an officer in X neighborhood. I don't have the power to direct our Department of Transportation to fill certain potholes in certain areas. What I can do and what we are working on doing is uplifting concerns and advocating for them. So that's different from telling someone to do something, because it's ultimately not my decision if it gets done. There are many creative ways that we have been and are going to continue to advocate for many of these issues. For example, potholes it's an issue all over the city. Potholes, public safety, it's about phrasing as a large group of constituents have raised X set of issues. Can we inquire as to what the administration is doing, or explaining some of the health and safety concerns for certain intersections where cars speed too fast? So it's an unfortunate reality of how our charter is structured, but I urge you folks to have patience with me as I figure out what the best ways to creatively advocate for constituents are. I'm still learning. We have a whole new set of department heads as well, so they're still learning. There's been a lot of changes into who's in City Hall, who's in the city administration, and we're all kind of navigating these waters together, but I will assure you that I am and have been fighting my hardest to advocate for District 4. And, you know, some bit of real talk is that District 4 is seen with a lot of the administration as a high resourced district and one that has fewer needs. And in many ways that is true. But to me, everyone deserves essential basic services. So I will continue to push and advocate for safe streets, paved roads, public safety, beat officers, all the things that many of us do want, and see how we can push the hardest to get some of these basic services that we do all deserve. Other quick roles of the council member: department advocacy. So that's what I mentioned with uplifting concerns and the process of creative inquiry with OPD, Department of Transportation, Public Works, and external relations. A major gap in Oakland over the course of our history has been Oakland not getting the money that we deserve for many things, whether it's state or federal grants. Oakland has not gotten its fair share of, for example, affordable housing dollars, has not gotten its fair share of money for infrastructure dollars. So there are many individuals in the city hall structure that can and are advocating for essentially this money that we do need. And I am one of those people advocating at the county, state, and perhaps one day federal level to see what dollars can flow into Oakland, so we're not exclusively relying on our taxpayer base and residents to fund the services that you know, quick examples of some positive creative advocacy that we've done externally. That's Iris and I over there on the ABC7 report. A couple of last week, some constituents in the Laurel neighborhood who live near the 580 had a broken sound wall with holes. I mean, it was a really falling apart mess that were raising public safety concerns. There were more break-ins. There were some cars that crashed into it. That's Caltrans property and Caltrans jurisdiction. However, we contacted the representatives that work at Caltrans to say, hey, a lot of our residents have been calling you. They've not gotten a response. Around the same time, a journalist was also calling Caltrans and asked to say, we're going to be talking about this publicly, Caltrans, can you do something about it? And the day after we called them, they sent out a maintenance crew to fix the wall, and they're starting the process of implementing a stone sound barrier in the way that some neighboring cities, most recently San Leandro, has had implemented. On the other side is me with Insurance Commissioner Ricardo Lara last week. If some of you live in high wildfire areas, you might be experiencing the issue of losing homeowners insurance. That is something that our state insurance commissioner deeply cares about, making sure that all people, whether you live in a flood zone or a fire zone, has access to that. So we'll be inviting him to have a community conversation with District 4 residents about homeowners insurance and high wildfire zones and what can be done. So just really quickly, I mentioned main roles include writing legislation and passing a budget. I'm on 4 committees: rules and legislation, public safety, finance and management, and life enrichment. And I don't have time to go into today on the details of what each of those do, but all of these meetings are publicly available. And I urge you, if you're interested, to sit on a session to see what we're talking about. If there are issues of a special relevance to District 4, if you sign up for our newsletter, and we'll have it at the end, I will alert the public if there's a particular item that concerns our residents maybe more disproportionately than other districts, and invite the community to make public comment if you feel strongly one way or the other. So really quickly, the overarching theme of what I want to accomplish in this term is to build a safer Oakland and a more accountable City Hall. Very broadly, and I'll go into more detail in a couple of minutes, this includes public safety, pedestrian and bike safety, wildfire prevention, stimulating our commercial districts, increasing public arts, and supporting our parks. Priorities for year one. As I said, I am in the learning process of how to best fight for our district and for our communities. We also want to make sure that residents feel heard. So constituent services is our number one priority, making sure that we're in touch with the community, listening and learning, as is relationship building and transparency. So constituent service, how can we engage the public? How can you engage with our office? So firstly, we just set up a District 4 Community Council. We put out a call for applications and received a lot of interest in joining this council, which is basically a set of neighborhood representatives from each of the very different parts of our district to have a voice and say in our policy making decisions. And for similarly to be in touch with sort of hyper-local neighborhood needs that our office might not otherwise be informed about. And this advisory council will, our current council members of this board will have one-year terms. So if you're interested and excited, please consider applying next year. If you know people who do, please reach out to us and we can share more about what it is for next year's applications. So town halls is another thing. There are every council member seems to do those differently. Because, and a lot of times in a lot of districts in Oakland, town halls are used as a way to really bring people out and engage neighbors who might not otherwise be activated. District 4 has a large activated community. So rather than have an overwhelming broad-based town hall in different neighborhoods, we're going to be focusing on issue-based town halls, or what I really like to say, community conversations. Our first one will be in April with where we will invite city departments. Like I mentioned, while I can't tell some of these departments what to do, I can connect them to the district and have them explain to our residents what they do and how they can be supported on different specific issues. Request a site visit. So the Department of Public Works has offered to do a public works bus tour of the district. And this will be hopefully sometime next month or April, where we will get over the span of a couple of hours to visit some of the specific sites that residents and that constituents have been emailing us about or asking us about. So if there's an area that falls within public works jurisdiction, so that's not potholes or traffic safety, because that's Department of Transportation, I recently learned, used to all be one department. It's a little bit of confusion right now, but if it's illegal dumping or specific hotspots where there's a lot of abandoned vehicles or trash or sidewalks, things like that, you can ask to be placed on a stop on that public tour. Office hours, we are restarting office hours. I think March 4th is our first round of them. We're going to have them in usually Saturday mornings. We'll try to change up the times for accessibility in a different District 4 coffee shop. They're 15-minute slots. You can sign up for a time that works for you and chat with me. Newsletter, like I mentioned, we send usually just about 2 per month. One is focused on community-based happenings, neighborhood cleanups, safety meetings, arts and cultural events, food festivals. The other newsletter is more policy focused, a little bit more of what we've been up to in some of our committees, councils, as well as sharing resources and social media as well. You can find me on all of the different social media platforms and we try to update regularly. However, my one request is not to contact our office via those platforms because sometimes I miss things. I run all the social media handles myself and sometimes I just don't get through to everyone. And that includes Nextdoor. Recently, there have been a lot of people tagging me on Nextdoor and very upset that I haven't been responsive on Nextdoor, but I, for my own mental health, do not check Nextdoor every day. And if you know people who are like, who want to say, oh, she doesn't respond on Nextdoor, she's not responsive or whatever, you know, my request to you is to ask them to email our office because we will respond in a reasonable amount of time. If we have the answers, we will share that information. If we don't have the answers, we will always get back to folks, and email is always the fastest way. Or if you have my cell phone number, which most of the district probably does. So relationship building, this is us touring the District 4 fire stations. Our chief lives in the district himself, and because of our high wildfire needs, we have a great relationship with our fire staff, transparency. That means a lot of things to a lot of people, but just one thing I wanted to mention that we are rolling out is a publicly accessible Google Drive that will have a list of meetings that me and my staff have attended with summaries. That's accessible to anyone. So any external meeting. So for example, if there are lobbyists fighting for one piece or another on a specific legislation or bill coming before council, I will be very clear with who I'm meeting with and what we're talking about. If generally I try to be fair, if there's one side of a group who wants to meet with me, I will allocate the same time and format to the other. If it's 30-minute Zoom call for one, it'll be 30-minute Zoom call for the other side. If it's a 45-minute in-person coffee, then it'll be the same for the other side. I try my best to be fair. Also, as a former City of Oakland Public Ethics Commissioner, ethics and transparency is very, very important for me. And I think that has actually become my reputation very quickly. So I don't get free tickets to games or coffee or lunches, which I am thrilled about. Public safety. So this is a key issue. This is me and my team doing a ride along with the new macro program. I recently, actually on Monday, did a ride along with OPD as well, and actually Area 4, which covers Dimond. And I had done a ride along also last year, including some of the areas that cover some of the more hillside of our district. So right now, when it comes to public safety, like I mentioned, I can't tell officers to go station at a certain place, but what me and my team are focusing on is building relationships with the area captains and the community resource officers, if they're here. And there is a real balance right now. There's a lot of OPD resources being directed to violent crime happening largely outside of our district. And there's a push-pull of how we make sure that we're still able to fight for police patrol in our commercial corridors as well. And again, this does fall under the mayor and city administrator. So, we are going to try to work with them to make sure that we can focus on having patrol in our commercial corridors. Pedestrian and bike safety is also a big issue. To me, it's part of the holistic public safety conversation. And we are trying to advocate with Oakland's Department of Transportation again to have better bike lanes, flashing lights, and ways to slow down cars. Just a quick note on that. I think for myself included, a lot of us feel that cars along some of the major corridors, certainly along MacArthur, go too fast. What do we do about that? I am supportive of speeding cameras. And that is unfortunately state legislation that has to change for us to be allowed to put in speeding cameras. I am supportive of the new bill that's been introduced to allow local jurisdictions to bring speeding cameras back. And that's part of the external advocacy that I am doing so that we can implement speeding cameras. Infrastructure, by that I mean potholes and paving and a lot of the issues that we talked about that fall under usually Public Works, OPDOT, which is our Department of Transportation, or Caltrans. Our request is that you make a 311 report, a see-click-fix report first. If you've not heard back from see-click-fix or had your issue resolved, then please write to us with your 311 request number, and we will try to elevate the issue and inquire about the status of the issue with with either Public Works or OPDOT usually. I do meet with those. I will start meeting with those directors regularly and be able to uplift concerns, but it is much more helpful to us to advocate if a request has already been put in. Economic development, this is just me at the Laurel Lunar New Year Parade. I'm very supportive of working with the bids and hopefully a future bid in the Dimond to have public events that really bring out the community, encourage folks to shop local, to increase foot traffic, to celebrate our public spaces. And this is an example of, one of them that happened recently. Okay, is it okay, Jay, if I take a few more minutes to finish up? Okay, I know I said I would wrap up earlier. So really quickly, I want to start launching into a campaign that our office will be launching sometime in the next couple of weeks. And that is called Lift Up D4 Businesses. And we have a hashtag for it, Lift Up D4 Biz. As you can see here, these are two local restaurants, two of many that have been broken into many times. If you can see this, the handwritten sign, it's outside Wawa Thai. Got break-in 10 times already. We have nothing. Please don't break our place. We suffer. It's an example of how our small businesses really are struggling right now. Here's another business owner from Blackberry Bistro on Park Boulevard in Glenview, who explained to me that he had gotten and broken into 3 times in the last 5 weeks. These are happening with regularity, and we have been raising these issues to our area captains to see if they can prioritize putting OPD patrol out and about. I'm not sure if you all have been noticing, but at least around here, which is because I live around here myself, I actually have seen more nighttime patrol in the last couple of weeks. I'm hoping this can continue and increase, but public safety and stopping the slew of break-ins involves a variety of efforts beyond exclusively OPD patrol. So Lift Up D4 Businesses is a campaign to empower and strengthen D4 commercial corridors by improving safety for businesses and residents, increasing walkability, and increasing community engagement, foot traffic, patronage of local businesses, getting to know your neighbors. That is part of the broader public safety conversation. And we're focusing on the commercial corridors because post-pandemic, we know that this is a place that does need economic support, revitalization. The majority of small business owners in our area in District 4 are Oakland residents themselves. And the more we can support local businesses, the more revenue we can bring to Oakland, the more money we have to do a whole bunch of other things, including filling potholes. So it all loops into each other. So this is just a little bit of our theory of change for this public safety campaign that we're really launching. The goal is to preserve and attract both businesses and residents. The reality is a lot of people are sick of crime in Oakland and are ready to leave and disinvest from their own community. I've had many people say, I go do my shopping in Orinda now rather than Oakland to go to the grocery store because I'm afraid my car will get broken into when I go to the parking lot. So this really is a strategy to make sure that we're all celebrating our local economy over here. And it involves different angles. I already mentioned OPD patrol, having a beat officer really get to know the neighbors, know the local businesses, know the young kids that hang around after school lets out, getting to really know and get back to community policing that Oakland has prioritized, at least on paper, since 1996 when a resolution was authored, increasing community policing. Pedestrian safety, like I mentioned, is a part of that conversation. The more walkable our neighborhoods are, the safer they are. The more that adults, elders, and children can walk on the streets, the more foot traffic we'll get, the more businesses will get patronage, and more humans on the road is always means more safety. Neighborhood beautification, DIA, and some of the bids, of course, already participate in this, but also advocating with primarily public works to do their part from the city as well. Arts and community events. We love Oktoberfest, Laurel Music and Art Festival, Montclair Beer and Wine Festival. These are great. I would love to see more events happening on a smaller scale and on a more regular basis. It's my vision by the end of my first term to have every commercial corridor on a Friday evening with a local band playing, just stopping and neighbors stopping by and engaging and having that kind of foot traffic. That's kind of a vision I'd like to see when it comes to celebrating our public spaces. So here's a couple of things that we will be doing. We'll have our launch event in March, which will be a community safety walk. It will actually most likely be right here in the Dimond as the first business corridor that we're addressing, partly because the Dimond has seen within District 4 the highest number of break-ins and the most number of crime incidences in recent months. And it is also the only major commercial corridor without a bid, so without some of those resources, but we will very much be doing events in each of the major business corridors. Dimond, Laurel, Montclair, Redwood Heights, and Glenview. In April, we're going to be having a community conversation with certain departments from the administration, including the Office of the Inspector General, to talk about policing and making sure that there's follow-up, for example, when businesses or residents make reports to OPD, making sure investigation happens and making sure that investigation is equitable. I've heard many times from small business owners who are immigrants or lower English proficiency speakers that they feel, or they've tried and tested, that their claims are sometimes less prioritized because of implicit bias and discrimination. That's a reality in our systems. So that will be an interesting discussion. In May, that is our target. We're going to be creating one-pagers to give out to businesses on ways to enhance community safety and to keep yourself safe, resources, including legal resources and whatnot. The reality is a large majority of small business owners don't have the time, resources, or energy to go to events. So we are trying to bring resources to them to increase that. And in June, we will have our District 4 Summer Arts Festival. Location information TBD, but it's going to be likely in a local park and be a lot of fun and an opportunity for folks to participate. If you are a local musician or artist or vendor, please reach out to our office. We'd love to have you. And ongoing will be, some of the same advocacy issues that I mentioned before. Okay, we're about to wrap up. Just final few words. This coming Saturday, we will have we'll have one of our first events honoring our District 4 Black History Month honoree, OG Rev, Reverend Harry Williams, who is a D4 resident and longtime community minister. He has worked at different ministries across Oakland, but more recently has shifted towards exclusively focusing on violence prevention initiatives across Oakland, food security, working with those impacted by homelessness, gang violence, sex trafficking, etc. Great person, great District 4 connector, and we'll have refreshments from local Black-owned businesses. And that's this Saturday at Montclair Presbyterian Church. So contact information once again. This presentation will also be on our publicly available Google Drive folder. And you can click this link to join our mailing list. You can also realistically just Google my name and the website will pop up, and that's how you get a link to join the mailing list. And I will stop there.
You want to share?
Okay.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I have a full. Thank you so much, Janani.
Janani.
Yeah. Okay. My name is Marty Wunsch. I'm a member of the DIA board, a relatively new member, and I'm going to try to moderate some of these questions. We're going to start with one online from Judy Kwan. What, if anything, can be done to prevent further PG&E power outages in the district? In my neighborhood near Redwood Heights Elementary, we seem to have more outages than the other parts of G4. On Sunday, we lost power for 26 hours. We were the first area to lose power and the last to have it restored. And Jay, do I need to do anything? I think the people online can hear me.
Yes.
Okay.
Hopefully.
Take it away.
Yeah. So as far as PG&E outages goes, I recently connected with our PG&E government liaison rep who understands our district because she's from here and is very much has an open channel of communications. If you write to our office with your neighborhood and name, I can follow up with Sarah, our PG&E rep, to ask about what's going on in this particular neighborhood and what improvement is needed. On the note of,
well, I was just asked to unmute. That's crazy. Unmuting again.
On the note of PG&E, they are working right now on undergrounding utilities in certain high wildfire areas in Piedmont Pines. They're working on hardening of other kinds of wildfire prevention efforts of other transmission lines up in Montclair right now. I think little by little, it'll be great to see all of our utility poles undergrounded, not exclusively in some neighborhoods, but right now they are prioritizing the highest risk neighborhoods. And I understand resident frustration. It's a much slower process than was anticipated, but it's something that we are continuing to advocate with PG.
Okay, how about a question from the audience? Sir,
Am from the Glenwood neighborhood. I know you've talked about local business, but do you have ideas or what are your ideas about growing the economy in Oakland overall? Large employers, medium-sized employers and so forth. And just parenthetically, I really appreciate your energy and your engagement.
Thank you.
can you repeat the question, sort of?
Mhm.
That's okay.
Yes.
Phrase. Yeah.
We talked about small businesses earlier today. What are my plans on engaging medium and larger businesses across Oakland? Okay.
Growing.
Yeah, and growing the economy. Yeah. So being on both the life enrichment and finance committees, I know is an opportunity to talk about things like workforce development and how Oakland can bigger picture be attractive for businesses. To me, it's not fair that Emeryville, for example, no disrespect to Emeryville, but you know, I have to go there to Bay Street to have affordable shopping experiences for kind of everyday items. It's also new industries like biotech, for example, has set up in some of our neighboring East Bay cities rather than in Oakland. I think a big part of the reason why we're not being as attractive to businesses and industries, and therefore not being that economic stimulus that we could be, is right now because of coming out of the pandemic, crime and potholes and homelessness. There was a study done with sometime within the last 2 years by, I think, the Goldman School at Berkeley, to assess, you know, what are factors that drive or dissuade businesses from coming to cities like Oakland. And a lot of the preconceptions was taxes, or commercial taxes and progressive business taxes are just too high. That actually ranked as a much lower reason than street cleanliness and safety and homeless encampments and other things. And I think part of the conversation is tackling those big, difficult issues. Safety, homelessness are not going to be overnight fixes, but starting to work on those, as well as addressing workforce development. A really great opportunity that I had a couple of weeks ago was sitting down with the president of Laney College to discuss, you know, how can we partner together to make sure that Laney College students and Peralta students who are largely from Oakland can get well-paying jobs and continue to contribute to our economy and not use an education and transfer that to other cities. How can we be more attractive to businesses and to stimulate the economy? So there's a lot. There's a lot there. So
Thank you. Okay, this is anonymous attendee. How do you plan to balance the need to keep the streets safe? For example, control large volatile crowds like sideshows and control crime with the need to keep the police behavior just and pivot to other modes of community work that do not require police involvement?
okay.
Long question.
Yeah. Well, I'll use the example of Lift Up D4 businesses as how I see police being a part of the public safety conversation, but not the only part of public safety. We are over-reliant on many of our institutions, including law enforcement at this point, for a lot of our needs, when we need to decentralize some of that power and see how community can step up. And I think that's going to be a constant balance, especially going into a budget cycle where we will be facing between $100 and $100 million of a projected budget deficit. So they're going to be very difficult conversations. I know there are actually D4 residents circulating petitions around right now, folks who are focused on traffic and pedestrian safety and trying to get more funds on that, and specifically move funds out of OPD to support that initiative. And I have so much to learn about what some of these proposals are, but it's a fine balance. I'm interested on making sure that we're focusing on evidence-based initiatives rather than normative conversations about the role of policing broadly, which is important to have. But right now, in the immediate future, I want to make sure that we're using our limited resources in the most impactful way. So I keep focusing on foot patrol and bike patrol and commercial corridors, because it does have a more clear deterrent effect versus OPD doing traffic stops. We know has more of a racially unjust bias and less efficacy as well. So I think for me, making sure that we're focusing on evidence-based initiatives rather than just for or against police or refund, defund. I mean, I think those are kind of violent discourse that gets people more likely to not participate in these conversations. And I think that's the opposite of what we need to do. We have to be more active in thinking about community safety more broadly. And as this budget season comes up, there will be very difficult conversations in all of our departments, including policing, on how we're spending resources. Personally, I want to focus, one of my specific initiatives is focusing on patrol. And to counterbalance that, I think it's worth taking a deeper dive into how we're spending resources on OPD's military equipment, for example, that eats up a lot of cost. And also overtime and how we can have accountability in making sure that our officers, well, firstly, don't have to work overtime and feel like this is a sustainable job, and making sure that our budget is protected, our dollars are protected. I've also learned recently how much of Oakland money goes towards settling lawsuits. And I think that is an ongoing conversation. So if anyone is interested, City Council does have closed sessions every other week, but the agendas for what is being discussed in closed session is made publicly available, and it's generally lawsuits and settlements. And the results of what is discussed in closed sessions, if decisions are made, is then publicly revealed in the subsequent city council meeting. So there are ways for the public to tune in on understanding the kinds of lawsuits that Oakland is facing, and where we need to improve our constituent services generally, but also be more protective of our dollars.
Audience question.
Hi, I'm a board member of Friends of Diamond Park, and we were for several years trying to get AD access to Diamond Park from Fruitvale and Lyman, and nothing has happened. We consulted with the city, and I was wondering, in your administration as council member, who could we talk to in the city about this? What agency? Is it infrastructure? Is it public safety, or what? Because there's a lot of bureaucracy here and we don't know what to do.
Yeah, I will quickly just introduce, well, Iris do we want to just say a couple words?
So the question for people online was from a woman in the Friends of Diamond Park.
Yeah.
Who's looking at ADA access.
Yes. Diamond Park,
To Diamond Park from Fruitvale
and Lyman.
and this is being directed to Iris, who's going to take that question.
Parks and Rec Director. Okay.
But I would be happy to take them.
I can't hear you.
I would be happy to take your information and follow that up.
So here's another online question, raising the issue of not getting regular mail delivery in Redwood Heights after for the second time not receiving mail for more than a week. I called the USPS at 1-800 and registered a complaint. Mail delivered the same day I filed the phone complaint. Don't know if this is Janani's, did I say it right?
Yes.
Purview, but troubling problem.
Yes. As someone in this neighborhood that has had very inconsistent mail delivery myself, it is something that is frustrating to me as well. We are going to be in touch soon with our Congresswoman's office, Barbara Lee, to see what she can do on that front, because USPS is federal government. At the same time, from some staff that I know work there, our leadership there, I've heard that one of the issues impacting them is what's impacting a lot of city departments, which is our hiring crisis and staffing crisis. I know specifically on my block, my lovely mailman of so many years retired, and it was filling that vacancy that took months. And then I would have Christmas Eve, this poor young woman who was delivering mail on Christmas Eve, Sunday mornings. I mean, just wild times to fill that gap, because I went with multiple days at a time, like many of you all, probably without mail. And it still is a haphazard system. And my guess it's a hiring crisis, but we are trying to set up a meeting with our Congress member and bring that issue up.
The young lady with the black belt.
Yeah, summarize the question. So, question from someone who's a renter. We're having issues with landlord and living conditions. Where does one go in the city? So the city does have the rent adjustment program, the rent board that if you file a complaint with can conduct hearings. There's also resources and tenant advisors within the city that can assist on that. But as far as living conditions goes, a citizen can always request a code inspection, and someone from the city, it might take a while realistically right now, someone from the city can come out, and if the property is not up to code, fine as well. There's also non-city resources like Oakland Tenants Union that do office hours in different places and can suggest other kinds of advocacy efforts as well. And other legal organizations as well. And I'm happy to talk more about it.
Okay,
Yeah.
Did you get your question answered?
Yes.
Okay. Housing is one, from the web, housing is one part of the equation. What concrete steps does Janani have to bring employment to Oakland? This would include job training and incorporate underprivileged individuals.
Yeah, I think that goes to the earlier conversation about workforce development. How do we make sure that young people in Oakland are getting not just jobs, but well-paying jobs, unionized jobs, skilled jobs that can make sure that we are supporting our residents with living wages so that they can continue to afford to live and work in Oakland. There are a wide range of initiatives that work. We have a Department of Workforce Development that they're working on. They, like many departments, are undergoing transition of their directors and many of their senior staff. But to me, it really starts with partnering with our public school system to make sure that young people get practical skills trainings and an understanding of the job opportunities available to them. Again, having connected with Laney College president and other folks, I just want to remind people that Laney spring semester is still free. And most of their education is geared towards very skill-focused programs that one could complete in 2 years or less. There are many certificate programs that folks can complete in a shorter amount of time. They have a great career services department, and they're being very proactive in getting employers to hire local and to set up offices local. Also, just selfishly, I want to make sure that Oakland residents consider public jobs. There are, I believe, 800 vacancies right now within the city of Oakland. And I recently asked our HR director, how many of those roles are entry-level roles? At least a third of them are entry-level. Many or most of those entry-level jobs do not require specific skill sets or degrees for some of these jobs. So there are a lot of opportunities for all age folks in Oakland who want to have career advancement and earn living wage jobs to work for the city in various capacities. I mean, some of our, of course, there, if you join the fire or police, you get trained pretty much for free in these academies for fire and police under state law. For other departments, the city of Oakland is obviously a challenging place to work with at times, but also there's a great upward mobility and pathway that folks can consider. So
Would you grab some water when we go for our next question? There's a whole bunch of hands up. I think you're next, ma'am.
Great, thank you. My name is Colleen Ryan. First, congratulations. We're very excited to see you in the role. My question kind of dovetails off of something you've been talking about, which is vacancies. And I think no matter what you're talking about, whether it's zoning or economic or workforce development, if there's vacancies, there's jobs that are allocated and funded that aren't actually work because the people are there. And I don't know exactly from where you sit what you can do, but especially where there's perpetually high vacancy rates in certain departments, what's being done to really ensure that those positions are filled so that we're actually getting the services that we need.
yeah.
Can you summarize?
Yeah, quick summary. we're aware of the hiring crisis in Oakland. What if anything, can council do to help expedite those vacancies being filled? So me and I'd say a majority of my colleagues on council very much are frustrated with the slow pace at which our HR department has been moving. And initially that was because of vacancies within the HR department. The good news is that I think in the last couple of months, a good number of those positions have been filled, and there was extra funding allocated for them to speed up the process of hiring their own people. So I do believe that we will hopefully see more promising stuff soon. The ransomware attack right now isn't helping with some of the our systems being down for a few days when it was down, but payroll and other things are back up and functional. So all new employees that were set to be hired on a certain date are on track to be doing so. But right now, the reality is you're going to be waiting. The current timelines are about 6 months from application to whether you find out if you've gotten a job. And that's an exorbitant long time, particularly for jobs that do require certain degrees or skill sets or years of experience, where if you are in a high demand, it's not just Oakland that's experiencing the hiring crisis. It's cities across the country, but really the Bay Area, where we don't have that competitive edge anymore if we're taking way longer than San Jose or Orinda or Berkeley or San Mateo. So I think there's more pressure because of the national market situation on HR getting that up to speed. But the best power in my toolbox actually is, I'm learning in that front, is asking questions on the dais. We get the opportunity with frequency to ask questions of department heads on the dais. So again, we can't tell them what to do, but we can ask very pointed questions on to what is and isn't happening. And a couple of meetings where we did have the HR director and city administrator, assistant city administrators present, me and my colleagues did focus questions on what's going on with the hiring. And these are public meetings, so that puts a little bit of fire under the wheel to, I think, get some of this moving. But it's certainly a big concern to me. And I'm also more long-term interested in, again, more of those local hire programs. Whether it's supporting local trade unions hiring local, or it's new industries coming in, getting the more partnerships with the tech industry to have coding classes. There's a world of opportunity out there, and I hope to be building the connections to make us a city that can provide every single person a well-paying job and a good education. And I'm thrilled to see that our community college system, with offering free colleges at Laney, for example, is one of the many moving pieces.
So the next question, are tag reading cameras also under the higher control? I know speeding cameras, but are tag reading cameras? No. Okay. Let me read this. Can we prioritize allocating funds towards installing tag reading cameras on both residential intersections and highway exits in collaboration with OPD and CHP on a daily basis in Reinhardt, Davenport, Caffin, Carson areas, Redwood Heights? We have heavily tinted window cars with no tags or paper tags, pacing and stealing from contractors' trucks. In most of these cases, our neighborhood has given up calling OPD because nothing seems to come out of it. Thanks.
I will start by saying that I understand the frustration with residents feeling like OPD is never going to come if you're calling them. But my request is please make the report, because that is data. Even if there's not the follow-up that you want to see, that is data that then I can use to advocate for more resources for specific corridors. And making that report increases the tools that I have to advocate for the district. So again, I can't tell OPD to put a license plate reader in that neighborhood, but if there's a high volume of calls, which is publicly available data on break-ins on certain streets, I can remind the area captain of that area that that's going on, and some of the folks who do have that power to put in more license plate readers. And that policy has been passed by city council. So we, before I was took office, so automatic license plate readers are approved and acted. It's speeding cameras that are state law.
Okay, what you have in the back?
I'm Hugh. I live on the border of Glenview and the Diamond. ODOT, Oakland Department of Transportation, has a they do a lot based on equity. And a lot of times when we have had issues with kids getting to school safely, that's been their response. So Edna Brewer lives next to several very high speed corridors. Brett Hart, it's the same. Our kids' safety, should be independent of equity. They've also lumped us into, they've done maps that are different from the district and different, they have their own way of doing it. They've lumped us in with stuff at the top of the hill. So it's almost like they intentionally did a geography to say, oh, you're the same as the top of the hill. You, based on the equity map, don't get any service. So I think it's an overall concern for all of District 4, but especially those schools. Safety should be the biggest issue, not where they're located. So I just wanted to pass that on and see what you thought.
Yeah, to summarize really quickly, raising concern about OCDOT using equity as an excuse to not take action on real serious traffic safety issues, especially near schools, and lumping us in, lumping certain neighborhoods that are not in the hills to saying that we're all one and we're all resourced. This is a very personal frustration of mine, living right off of MacArthur and not feeling like I can comfortably cross my own street so close to my house. And it is traffic. There are actually initiatives, for example, like a study to implement a road diet in the Diamond, that funding has been secured, in the Laurel, funding has been secured, but the actual study hasn't happened yet. So some of it's not even a funding issue. It's just getting that implemented and reminding our Department of Transportation that traffic safety issues happen everywhere. In fact, on Friday, I'm going to be going to a vigil that's hosted by Rapid Revolt to honor someone who lost their life on High and MacArthur. And there's too much of this attitude that someone has to die for the city to take our intersection seriously. And that is a culture I think that really needs changing. And OCDOT is a new department with a lot of new leaders there. And it's not going to be an overnight process. But I am very, very concerned about discrediting the real needs of pedestrian bike safety in particular. The one thing that I have heard, even in next to Thornhill Elementary, there's some real serious traffic safety concerns as well. And a group of residents there are calling out like the number of times that kids get hit in some of these intersections, which actually happens with frequency. The principal was pleading, he really talked about waking up every morning feeling terrified of which kid might get hit that day. And it's really happening with a lot more frequency. Traffic and bike safety issues are exasperating. Like, this is a nationwide problem. Cars are going way too fast. And it's very much one of my advocacy focuses with OCDOT and all the other relevant bodies. But the one thing that I did learn is if it's a school related issue, if someone from the school makes that 311 report or calls, it is much more likely to be expedited.
Who's the equity? I'm not sure with equity.
In this context, I think it's OCDOT saying, well, there's more people that have died based on traffic safety concerns in Deep East Oakland. So we're going to focus on getting them a road diet and hard median first. But then also, I think some of it is an excuse and a mask for the fact that, yes, they are understaffed and there's other issues and maybe other priorities within the many roles that they play. Because there's East Oakland residents I've talked to who are like, no, we're also not getting our hard and median or our flashing walk signs. So yeah.
Okay, we're going to take two more questions.
Okay.
We're going to take one more from the web and one more from the floor. And then I'll ask you and Iris what to do with the rest of them. Let's see. I emailed the office about crime in our neighborhood, specifically on Limerick Boulevard. A couple of weeks ago, never heard back. I also copied the police in the mayor and heard from no one. I know that other members of our neighborhood are here now. But we had another violent crime happen on Limerick today in our 72-year-old neighborhood. Security guard was beaten unconscious as he videoed a second robbery with guns on our block in the last 2 weeks. Can someone please get back to me? And others in my neighborhood also would like to receive. Anyway, this person has an email. Shall I just like elevate this to?
I think so, yeah. I mean, I know our staff is doing their very best to respond to our District 4 inbox, and I mean, I think most of the time turnaround for getting a response has been within so far within 3 days, but maybe things slip through the cracks, and my request is please reach out again, but also that we have her email, their email, we will take that down.
Okay. Gosh, I don't know who to call them. How about you?
New resident in the district. You heard so far 3 people have mentioned Redwood Heights. It's all about break-ins, armed robberies are daily things, especially on Reinhardt Davenport. It's just getting nonsensical at this point, and I've never felt this unsafe in my own home before. No one's doing anything about it. We've written emails to your inbox. We've written emails to police. I personally filed reports for every incident. I personally been involved in a couple recently. No one's given anything. I don't know what's the solution.
Yeah, I mean, absent my ability to put an officer in that intersection, all I can do is share the pattern with the area captain and talk about the frequency with which it's going on to them and hope that it happens. So the reason why we're launching this Lift Up D4 Businesses campaign and starting in the commercial corridors is to bring public awareness to what's going on. There is a reputation in a lot of the city departments, including police, that District 4 is fine, that we don't, because we don't see the volume. Yeah. And so at least 2 out of 3 of the area captains who represent District 4 will be at our launch event and will be at our community conversation, and they want to engage more. Once we got lucky and they actually, one of the officers came to a neighborhood meeting to at least listen and say, okay, well, we'll look into prioritizing having an officer patrol this area, at least for certain times of the day. I mean, I'm going to be honest, I did a ride along on Monday, and I was there are other officers assigned to each beat, and Redwood Heights and Laurel is between beat 22 and 25. And at the lineup, I'm like, where's the officer for 22 and 25? And one's on disability leave, one's on some other leave, and one has never really filled. And every other beat has an officer, and they're just like, oh, well, there's less volume, so we're just going to leave that empty till they come back. And I was pretty shocked, and we actually ended up taking calls in that there were calls of very serious violent situations actually in that neighborhood. Some were less, some were kind of mistakes. Okay, oh, I thought that was a weapon, that wasn't, that happens. But there were also some real serious situations going on, and there's response, but I think the bigger issue is how do we deter and prevent this from continuing to happen? And part of that is making sure that we make known what's going on to OPD and the city administration and the mayor, who is really the one who has the power to say, yes, we can put someone on that street, or we can have more of a deterrent force. I know the neighborhood councils in that area are active, and the community resource officer should be in each of those meetings. Sometimes they're not very well attended meetings, but the more people that show up to those kind of forums, it used to be called NCPC, Neighborhood Crime Prevention Council. Now it's called neighborhood councils. If you're not sure what yours is, you can email our office and we can look up on the map who the right contact person is. Some neighborhood councils are more active and engaged than others. Others have meetings with less frequency, others have with more frequency, but it is a requirement that someone from the police department, a representative, a community resource officer is always present, at least for part of the time, to listen and bring forward those messages to the people with the decision-making power to put someone there. And it's not the answer that I want to say. Honestly, it's not the answer that I want to hear from an elected official, but the public awareness campaigns that my office does have the power to launch is the tools that we do have to raise awareness about public safety. And that's what we can do, amplify what's going on. We can do that for, I mean, right now there are maps under progress. Maybe Iris can take or can find out for you and figure out what your beat is. Because there has been, the same way there's been redistricting with city council, there's also been redistricting within police beats. And so no one really knows whose district lines are where. So it's a source of confusion right now, but I think this is growing pain. So we will figure all that out soon.
I want to thank you.
Thank you.
A great engaged audience here and online. There's still more questions. And thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you. Thanks. And if we didn't answer your question, email district4oaklandca.gov. We really do try our best to respond within 3 days. Okay.
Great presentation, yeah. Just gonna put up your contact information one more time on the screen.
Yeah.
Just in case you have a lot more questions there.
Display your contact.
Email sign up, newsletter.
Right, yes, yeah, thank you so much.
And we gotta figure out how to get the questions up in the chat.
Pops here and then with your office.
Yeah. If there's kind of information on that, we'll respond. If not, hopefully they'll email it on this. But, yeah, I mean, I'm learning how to do that. On the things that we don't, it's like the open thing. Straight. Like, I'm not trying to destroy relationships with them. But I'm like, at some point I'm gonna say that I don't take registry seriously. That's really shields.
My sense back when we're seeing the resource system.
It's also a matter, yeah, I think other areas are part of it, but apparently they work very hard compared to other cities, even here. It's so, it's gonna be very, very bad. Even if we.
Like just tiny URLs are just undo this.